Good morning, students. I am Dr. Raman Gupta from Government College Bara, and in this video, I'll teach you the poem My Last Duchess. In the last video, we have discussed the poet Robert Browning, and this poem has been composed by the same poet. So, let's start the text first, and later on, we'll discuss the summary of the poem. Okay, so here is the text. That's my last duchess, painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. Before starting the explanation, I want to tell you that this poem is a dramatic monologue in which there is only one speaker, and there may be some silent listener also. So that the poet here is speaking and telling that there is some duke who is telling about the portrait of his last duchess, or the duchess who is no more. That's my last duchess, painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. He is showing the person who has come with a new proposal of marriage for the duke. He is showing him the picture of his last duchess, and he is telling that the quality of the picture is so good that she was looking alive. It was only worth of material for him, not the emotions of that duchess. I call that piece a wonder. Now Fra Pendolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. He tells him that Fra Pendolf, who is one of the great painters, artists, worked hard to portray that picture of the Duchess. Will it please you sit and look at her? And it is no doubt very attractive and arrests the attention of everyone. I said Fra Pandolf by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I, and seemed as they would ask me if they durst how such a glance came there. The picture is covered with curtains. The Duke draw the curtain to show that picture, show the beauty of that picture to the person, and tells him that the facial expressions of that picture are so natural that they look very original and natural to the strangers, and it seems that they are telling something to the person who is viewing them, who is uh, beholding them. and everyone feels surprised to see the naturality of emotions in that picture, in that portrait. So, not the first are you to turn and ask thus. He was not only the first to ask that question, but, but everyone asked the same who sees that picture. Sir, it was not her husband's presence only called that sport of joy into the Duchess' cheek. Perhaps Frappendolf chanced to say, her mental lapse over my lady's wrist too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. It was, there was a natural smile, natural smile, beautiful smile on the face of the Duchess. But how that smile came on her face? It was not the presence of her husband, not because of the presence of her husband in front of her, but it may be due to some normal cause, some normal reason. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. And it was a matter of courtesy for her because she was very courteous. She used to give smile on small matters. There was not very important thing for her to smile over the different matters. She used to smile very easily. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. So, she was very generous by nature, and it seemed on her facial expressions also. She had a very soft heart which could be impressed, which could be melted very soon. She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Whatever she used to look, she liked that matter. So she was not grave, or she was not very uh, proud of herself, proud of being Duchess. Her nature was very simple. Somehow I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift. And when it came to me, it came to my notice that she has equal worth of her standard with the things which are considered by him substandard, because their name of family was very high ranked, but she did not care that rank. Who would stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such an one and say, just this or that in you disgusts me, here you miss or there exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, and made excuse. Even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Duke says that he did not like that act of her nature. He felt proud of his family name and rank, but when he could not change her nature because he had never learned to stoop, and he did something very, very disgusting. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew, I gave commands. Then all smiles stopped together. She used to smile every time on small matters, but it was not much important or more important for her if we compare the presence of Duke or the presence of anybody else. And this nature of her grew gradually, and this Duke did not like. So he says, I gave commands. He gave orders to kill her. Then all smiles stopped together. Her smiles stopped together. There she stands as if alive. And now she is only in the portrait. She looks alive in the portrait, but actually she is not alive. Will it please your eyes? It is very attractive. We'll meet the company below then. And after then he says that they'll meet in the in the common room or in the outside the museum. I repeat, the count your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretence of mine for dowry will be disallowed. And here his nature of getting dowry from the wife's side of the new proposal which had come for him, he expressed his desire that they will not disallow him to get dowry, whatever he wants to get in that. Though his fair daughter's self, besides, their daughter is no doubt very beautiful, but they will also give a handsome dowry also. As I avowed at starting is my object, though his main object is to get married, to get the daughter of that duke as his wife, but along with that he also desires to get good dowry. Nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though taming a seahorse, thought a rarity which claws of Innsbruck cost in bronze for me. And while going back from that area, he told him to have a look on the idols of Neptune and seahorse, which were rare objects, which were rare idols and were casted in bronze by a famous person, Claus of Innsbruck. So this is the text and explanation of the poem, students. This is in brief. Actually, I could not explain in very detail. If you think there is some obscurity to understand, if you find any problem to understand, you can ask me separately and I'll teach you. No? In the next video, I'll discuss some summary of the same poem. Thank you and have a nice day.